I'm delighted to have with me an august group of senior executives from various brands within the lifestyle segment. We want to make the session as interactive as possible. So after each of the panelists have introduced themselves and described the positioning of their individual brands, I'd really like to open it up and try and get as much interactivity and answer the questions that you're most interested in. So as a brief introduction, and then I'll go to each of the panelists in turn. Immediately to my left is Anton Bawab, who is the regional president of Viceroy Hotels. And then Alex Hugo, who is the vice president of global brand management for Me by Melia. Then we have Anthony Ingham, who is the global brand leader for W Hotels. And on the end of the panel, Kiko Sarasola, who is the president and founder of Roommate. So thanks to you all for being here today. What I'd like to ask each of you to do is to briefly describe, and starting with you, Anton, if you could, the nature of your brand and its positioning, how many units you currently have, and what your vision is for growth over the medium term, just to set the scene.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for joining in the graveyard shift. Viceroy Hotels and Resorts, or Viceroy Hotel Group, California-based company. We call ourselves a modern luxury hotel group. We've been called various names, started off as boutique, then lifestyle. Ultimately, our ideology starts with saying we are hosts first and always. So as long as we don't take our eye off the goal, we are hoteliers, we are hosts. Our portfolio comprises of 15 hotels, open operating between the Americas and one in the Middle East, with a rich pipeline of 8 properties between Europe, Africa, and the Americas. We've grown from modest origins, and the boutique word applied to us very well, because our hotels had individualized designs. No two hotels looked the same, and still no two hotels look the same. But we've grown up and graduated from finding comfort in the 60, 70, 80 key hotel into the 300 key hotel, into the 499 key hotel. And what we're finding there is the fundamentals do not change as long as we keep our eye on the ultimate objective, which is being hosts, being hoteliers, and providing our guests with a service that is individualized and that is curated for the destination that we operate in.
Fantastic. Alex, could I ask you to introduce Me by Melia to the audience?
Yes. Me by Melia started off and is embedded within the Melia Hotels International Group, which are holding 6 brands with about 300 hotels, or 350, depends if you ask me on Monday or on a Friday, but between 350 hotels, it's embedded within our 6 brands. Me by Melia is we start off as a lifestyle brand, pure lifestyle brand in 2006, with Cabo being our first property, and then Me being the second property being launched. And gradually we moved into understanding that lifestyle at that time meant something which now it doesn't mean anymore. And I think we're going to get into this throughout the panel. But we're moving into the high-end, more high-end luxury lifestyle section, which we understand is our niche market. So this is all about service. We are hoteliers. This is a hotel group that just is celebrating its 60th birthday. We're European. We're basing our business on the hospitality industry, understanding that lifestyle for us has a niche about culture, local understanding, and making each one of these properties as luxury should express at its maximum something that is very individually driven and tailor-made to the destination we are. This is where we are. We right now have 7 properties open, about 6 to be opened within the next 15 months, and we want to grow to be about 25, not more than 25 to 30. We believe size does matter in this. It's very difficult to do something tailor-made and grow vast and to an extent that then that promise can't be kept up. So we don't want to grow more than about 30 within the key cities, and that's where we are right now.
Thank you very much. Anthony, relatively within the panelists, W has achieved the greatest distribution, and arguably you're edging towards, if not actually being mainstream. So could you introduce W for us, please?
So W is currently 46 hotels in almost 20 countries. There probably will hit around 75 hotels by the end of 2020. I think certainly W is not mainstream when you look at the consumer that we attract. So W is now squarely in the luxury space from an ADR perspective. But the words luxury and the words lifestyle are chronically overused and have become a bit meaningless. And so the fortunate thing for W is that it's kind of credited for creating this category. And so we position W very much as its own unique brand, competing in the luxury space, but not confined by the traditional notions of luxury. So one of the biggest challenges that I think we're going to talk about today, and it's a very real one, is there is a huge consumer demand for this. I mean, W is wildly successful. But what consumers love about it is a delicate balance with growing globally and scaling, because remaining very individual, forward-thinking in design and locally relevant is fundamentally, it's the core of why the brand is successful. And as you get bigger, in any organization, those two things fight. So we have to be very clear about how do we continue to orchestrate that as successfully as we have done today, moving forward as we get bigger.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. And Kike, if you could introduce Roommate to the audience, that would be great.
Okay, first of all, I'm here with three big players, which I love, and I want to be like them, but I'm cheaper. So I like to say I'm the affordable luxury of my friends here to my right, which I admire, but they are exactly what I position myself. You were my role model was W Hotels, and I just wanted something just as good but cheaper. So what I did was something that I would like to stay in. So when I started this brand 10 years ago, I started with my husband, and we wanted something nice that we would really like to stay in. Central locations, affordable luxury with a lot of decoration, very good service at affordable prices. No? I found that this luxury and lifestyle brand was going way too high for my expectations, so I thought I would stick more to the bed and breakfast. Some places we do have restaurants, some places we lease them out, some places we do have rooftops, but basically our model is in the center of the cities, very good locations, very affordable prices with a lot of decorations and with a very good service. No? Just to give you an example, different things. I hate the hotels that breakfast closes at 10. If I'm partying the night before, I want to sleep late, breakfast until 12. Free Wi-Fi, those hotels that they charge, the more you pay for the room, the more they charge for the Wi-Fi. That's ridiculous. We have free Wi-Fi in all the city for our clients. So all these kinds of things that I like to experience in hotels is why we put in our brand, and that's what we try to do. We have 22 hotels in operation, and we open 10 more in the next 12 months.
Wow, and when did you start? When was the first?
2005.
Wow, so phenomenal growth. Well, thank you very much, all of the panelists, for those introductions. Let's now dive in, and if I may start with Anthony. I mean, the first W in New York was arguably one of the first lifestyle hotels. Just be interested in your view with the growth that you've already achieved and the pipeline taking you up to 75. How do you balance that scale with the individuality of a lifestyle offer?
Yeah, it is the million-dollar question, and I think what W has done well to date is that we are extremely clear internally about what W is and what it isn't. So we have W's DNA very clearly articulated from a design, programming, food and beverage, and service perspective, and that DNA is quite. The DNA defines the type of experience that we will create. It never defines the details of the experience that we'll create. And so each hotel, each W that opens is the next evolution of the brand. Every hotel is unique. It's made specifically for that location. It's designed for that location. And we leverage local partners from restaurateurs, mixologists, coffee roasters, fashion retailers. And we look for a good blend of local partners together with W-operated spaces that can create the kind of energy and environment that is W's hallmark. So the consistency is always the energy and the kind of vibe and the kind of people that you will find, but the experience is always unique to that destination, very locally driven. It just has a W lens over that destination.
So just trying to understand how much people drive the growth. I mean, can you transition somebody who's in the broader family, let's say in a Westin or a Sheraton, into being a WGM, or how do you sustain the culture?
So one of the things which is a very good question. One of the interesting things is that so I've been working at W for 5 years. Originally, I looked after St. Regis Luxury Collection W and Le Méridien for Europe, Africa, Middle East, and then Starwood split W out about a year ago, and so now I look after all W globally. And one of the reasons for that is, as we grow bigger, it needs a kind of special approach to retain the culture. But from a recruitment perspective, it's much less formulaic. It's much harder to predict than you think, because rarely do you see very successful WGMs coming from very independent, boutique-y, nightlife-driven B&F operations or boutique hotels. So the dynamics of a GM that comes from a very entrepreneurial business generally struggles with a big corporation. So there is a specific skill set that you need to scale a brand like W that can live within a giant corporation and leverage everything that the corporation delivers, from systems, channels, process, branding, SBG. You need to be able to leverage those things, at the same time be a bit of a rebel and push back on bland corporate culture, be connected to the local community, have a strong point of view on food and beverage. So those skills have to sit within the same GM, and it's a very different recruitment process to if you're looking for a GM for an independent boutique hotel. And those GMs can come from the most unexpected places. It's about a mindset as opposed to necessarily a CV.
Yeah, very interesting. Alex, if you look back over, let's say, 10 years, you probably started life within the boutique space, and then it's evolved into the lifestyle space, and now we see all kind of definers coming, like affordable lifestyle, luxury lifestyle. Where do you see Me by Melia positioned? I mean, and maybe relative to your colleagues on the panel, how do you see yourself positioned relative to W, relative to Viceroy, or asked another way, what are your USPs?
Well, two things come to my mind when asked this very extremely important question. I think it's one of the things is that you, as a brand, if you don't have something very clear to stand for, you have nothing. So I think it's very important that people, when you're able to talk about your brand, they understand immediately what you're all about. So if this doesn't become clear, then obviously you're lost. It doesn't matter who you compete with. And I think what you're going to find in this panel is each one of us is trying to go into a niche that makes it interesting for an investor or interesting for us to run the brand and somebody else to actually purchase it and to experience it. That's important. And I think that is changing dramatically. Second thing is that I think the industry is changing dramatically. The customer experiences, what they want from day-to-day travel, is changing all of a sudden dramatically at light speed. With social media and everything being combined into something that is, and markets opening up. We just, as a group, signed the first hotel in Iran, and things that are tremendously challenging to all of us, and changing us as a speed of light. So if you mix both of those together, what we're trying to do is have a niche that is very clear. What we are trying to do as a group needs to be attractive to the customer. And what we understand is when we pick and choose our cities, which the way we pick and choose them is is there a cross-selling opportunity? Are we able to swift customer from one space to the other? When you open up Miami, how does that relate to New York? New York, how does that relate to London? London, how does that relate to Ibiza? Which it seems everything relates to Ibiza. And yes. It puts German on my flag, but I'm feeling more Spanish. So this is how we pick and choose cities. Obviously, cities are evolving. So when we talk about cities and when we did our expansion plan 3 years ago, what is now on as cities where we want to be has dramatically changed because of cultural and things and how cities are evolving. And so I think what needs to happen is this is still a business that tries to identify itself now when we speak about Airbnb and how do we separate ourselves from some other providers. When it comes down to this is a positioning statement which people, when they come in, still what I've told them that they're going to experience, they have to actually encounter and better. And we work with a variety of things that we try developers, which is important to us. It's important to have a building that speaks, that can be reconverted and give something back to the local community. We just did that in Milan. We took a building. Aldo Rossi has been a landmark within Milan, forgotten for many years, and I think with the help of our partners, we returned it to the old glories, bringing in good food and beverage partners. Sometimes these are international brands, but more often these are local entrepreneurs that want to develop their city and their local community. We're working with a lot of art, and again, as being Europeans, proudly Europeans, working with a strong European design. We want to go back where people actually can sit on a chair and say, this is good design, this is something that I love, I can work with this. We don't want to create something that is nice to look at, but the moment you sit on it doesn't work, it's nice. We don't want to create hotels that are buildings that represent the pride of an architect who has ruined the owners. That's neither us. We want to do something that is lively, that is fun, that is luxury when it comes to the service experience. Some of our competitors are more within the entertainment. We think we are hoteliers. So far as the service part is very important when it comes to delivery service, together with the lifestyle culture, which means the service doesn't have to be stiff, but it still needs to be very good service if you want to pay high-end rate. That's what we're expecting.
Is there a minimum or maximum number of keys in your mind as you approach a potential project?
The number of keys you need in order to make money, that's the minimum. You have to have keys in public areas that allow us to bring to life our orchestra. So yes, there's a minimum because the overall investment requires a minimum amount of keys in order to make money.
How many?
It depends very much on the market, you would be surprised. But we look at markets like Marrakesh, where you might have a 50-room hotel work very well. And if you go to New York, then we would start with 150 keys just to make sure. We would like to be below 100 because then union can't come in, but you have to be above 150 in order to make money. So it's a fine balance between the P&L spreadsheet, which the owners bring to us, and what you want to really reach and acquire as a luxury lifestyle. I think that's where we're all in. If you're too big, it's very difficult to be personalized, and I think when you charge a very high room rate, unless you're personalized, you give a personalized service, you don't give anything, because in the end...
Your smallest I'm tracking is Miami at 129.
Right.
And the biggest Cancun at 434.
Right. And both represent the brand in their markets, so...
So why wouldn't you convert the White House in London into Me by Melia?
Because right now we don't drive to have the biggest one. So White House would be the largest one. And we already have the Me London, which is 157, which we're very happy with.
So only one per city?
Naturally, I would say yes. There are a couple of cities where we could have a couple. Dubai. Miami is one. We can have one downtown and one by the beach. But yes, naturally, for what we are trying to do, there is not much more into than one per city. If you want more, you can have one of our other brands that can be multiple layout. But because we are very demanding on where we want to be within a city, normally you have only one space that fits in.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please,
Kike. You know how I think that this feeling that you said, that it's difficult to keep that feeling, that sense of feeling. I've come to the conclusion that it really depends on how you do your lobby and how you do your breakfast room. Because I was the other day in a hotel, And the feeling of that huge breakfast and that huge reception at the end of the day made it look like it was a huge hotel. And for example, my property in New York, which is 150 rooms, the lobby is very small and the breakfast room is very small. And people think I have 40 rooms and it's really 150. So if you really think about it at the end of the day, it's really how you put the public spaces and how you lay it out, which makes it that feeling. No? At the end of the day, they don't know how many rooms are on top. No? Just a quick thing.
Yeah, the intimacy. Anton, so what's the...
There's a question.
Oh, sorry.
If you don't mind,
Please.
it's a topic that interests us specifically because people typically associate reception desks with a barrier with a hotel, and yet one of the elements of a lifestyle hotel is that it's designed in principle to be a social hub for the local community, the type of place where people want to hang out. How do you create that balance between having the reception desk there serving as a barrier and being a social space / common area that welcomes the social community?
Have you ever done a check-in in a place that doesn't have a reception desk? It's very uncomfortable, at least at me from a client's point of view. So even though you're right, I don't like, for example, the reception desks, and I'd love to take them away. Where I've seen that they've done it, in LA, for example, I was in the Andes and things like that. It's very cute, very nice, but at the end it's very uncomfortable, at least in my point of view.
Yeah, that's my experience as well. Because I mean, we've looked a lot at whether we just do away with it and have iPad check-in, but consumers actually want to be, like you arrive, you want that process to be quick and fast and go straight to your room and then come back down to the living room and play. And so from my point of view, and what we design now are very small pods that are clearly a check-in space, but there's no barrier about it. It's like a round, usually like designed pod thing that is a design feature with a person to help you as opposed to a barrier.
We are fundamentally a very traditional industry. People want to arrive, they want a clean room, they want to get in quick, they want to have it warm, hot water, they want to have a clean shower, they want to have a good breakfast, they want it to be quiet, and they want to leave quickly. So, I mean, no matter how we turn it, you've got to have that arrival experience of me accepting you in the house. And as a traveler, if you go through the journey, you arrive, you've got your phone, you've got your passport, you need somewhere to put your clutter down while you traditionally hand your credit card or swipe your phone or whatever. So no matter how we try to reinvent the industry, if we keep looking at it, we need to provide the fundamentals. Yeah. And whether the shower has 1 head, 2 heads, or 4 heads, don't compromise with the water pressure. Whether the bed has 600 count, 1200 count, don't compromise with the hygiene factor and the cleanliness of it. So it's, I mean, no matter how we try to get fancy with it, the fundamentals have to be there, and then you can augment it, but you cannot compromise on the fundamentals.
And it's got to be the promise of the brand. I think differences will come, and I agree with my colleagues, the differences will come from small things. How do you position your brand? Looking at this, at our 4 brands, you're going to find a different experience as a promise, as an arrival process. I'll give you an example. My wife, she was one of the first. We opened up the first hotel. We checked in and we came from an overseas flight, and she was like, never, ever do that again to me. I have to check into a social space. Not ready yet. This is not for me. I just came out of a flight, 11 hours, and that was a late arrival, 8, 9 o'clock. People were starting to gathering in what we had as a lobby space / bar / everything, and she was not happy. She was not happy for a whole week because I did that. So we understood very clearly that,
you looked your best after 11
Well, I was happy already. So, so that meant for us, all right, if we want to be in what we think hoteliers, listening to our customers, understanding what they wanted, we understood they want to have a high-end hotel experience. They want to be as private in their retreat as it could be, because that's what they're paid for. At the same time, being able to be in a social space whenever they want to, which for us means when you are ready as a customer, not when I'm telling you to be ready, then you're joining to the party. And we understood that that has an impact in the design and construction manuals by separating the spaces and creating spaces which actually now, some of our front desk spaces are the most theoretic spaces, and they're actually used for other events as well, and not only for check-in when there isn't a check-in. So it's really important for us to fine-tune our experience, make sure we listen to the customer, and I think that's where the evolvement goes. Some do it with the check-in online and web check-in, and you don't see a customer. I think when you are in a tailor-made high-end experience. You still want to be able to talk to somebody, but each one of us finds their own way. But I think the customer experience is the most important that drives us towards this, while I think everybody in this room agrees that the social epicenter that we're creating at the hotel is a must for us in order to play in this league. How you do that varies a little bit from one to one.
I don't agree.
Good. Kike, tell us.
No, for example, in my sense, there's like you say, there's space for all of us, no? And I love your hotels, and I think it's fun. But basically, 90% of the times when I go to the city, the last thing I want to do is stay in the hotel. I want to go out. I want to visit the city. I mean, come on, I came here yesterday. I haven't left the Intercontinental. I mean, if I'm going to go out tonight, I want to go out to a restaurant outside the hotel. I don't want to have drinks here. I've been here all day for 48 hours. So at the end of the day, I believe that in the spaces that I do have, but I don't look for it. In my component, I don't. A roommate is different in the sense that each one of my hotels is different, but basically I work by the 3 Ds in Spanish: dormir, ducharte, desayunar, bed, breakfast, and bathroom. And for me, that's the most important thing. And once in my concept, in my hotel, if you like that in my hotels, you like them in all of them. You might not like the decoration. Some of it is modern, some of it is classical. But at the end of the day, I believe it has to be a good location. You have to give that experience: a good bed, a good bathroom, a good shower. And then at the end of the day, I want my clients to go out to the city. No, I'm not so interested in F&B in my sense. So
Kike, just expanding on that for a minute. What do you see as the problems as a relatively new entrant into this affordable luxury space? What do you see as the problems of the traditional hotel industry? What are you offering that they're not offering?
Well, first of all, for example, Hugo was saying, it's true. Your wife would come and she wanted something private. The noise, for example, if I go to a place and I don't want to be hearing party upstairs, I mean, if I want to party, I want to party. So at the end of the day, it's what we really want as a client. And what do I think about the hotel industry? I mean, I think it's so boring. I mean, the old factors here, the old elements. I mean, we have to really evolve. I think the whole industry, hotel industry. I come from another world. They never accepted me yet, so it's fine. So that's why I can say what I think. I think the hotel industry is so boring. I think we're seeing everything go by. I think we're fighting Airbnb and all the sharing economy. We already let Booking come in. I think it's pathetic. We're just standing there complaining and not doing anything new. I think we are for elements that are doing something new, but I think we really all should start demanding. We're 10% of the wealth in the world, so come on, let's do something different, no? I think this industry has to really boost up and change and give new ideas, or else we're going to get another Booking go by and we're going to see our benefits go down.
So just in terms of the disruptive technology that's coming in and making hotel owners and operators think about their business model, you've done something very interesting and integrated an Airbnb element into your hotel offering. Could you just maybe walk the team through that?
Yeah, last year the Hotel Association in Spain came to me and said, Kike, as you go so much in the media, could you help us do a strike and prohibit this American company called Airbnb? I had never heard about it. I had a little bit, but I had never used it. I said, first of all, prohibit and strike is against, I don't like that. And I said, okay, let me study the company. I said, wow, what an incredible company. Okay, I've never used it. Why? Because I don't have the security that I'm going to find the apartment. Maybe I want the cleanings. And so I found that it was the same thing as when I came with roommate. There was the 5-star hotels, and then there was the 2-star hotels. There was nothing like fancy in between that I could like and stay in. And I found it was the same thing in the rental apartments. You had the top end, majestic, Trump Soho, one fine stay, fantastic, but very expensive. And then you had Airbnb that they give you the key and they don't do anything else. So I said, my God, I think I found a niche. So what I did is I took, instead of taking around my hotels in the cities, I looked for 1,000 apartments. I looked to them, I guaranteed them, took the pictures, and invited them to become part of my technological platform. From my hotels, I service those apartments with cleaning. They can use my hotels as to pick up the keys. They can. What I did was create a portfolio of guaranteed apartments that have hotel services, all kinds, some of them included in the price, and some you can menu it. And it was the way I thought, and I think I just opened a year ago, and it's going quite well, that the average age in Airbnb is 28 years old. When it comes to 31, it drops, because there comes a certain age you want your room to be done, you want the cleaning, or you want maybe a nanny or a cook. So I saw that there was a niche at that moment that had not been used, and I came out, I said it to the public. My hotel friends in Spain insulted me. They said everything you can imagine, traitor and everything else. And now what's happened? Accord has just bought a company of Oasis of rental apartments. Hyatt has gone into One Fine Stay. And I really think we should open our minds. Right now, I have 10,000 apartments. I have 2,500 rooms. I multiplied by 4 my portfolio. I have single rooms, double rooms, suites, and apartments. No, I think it's a logical thing that we can serve and cater to them. And instead of fighting this thing, which is not going to go away, it's here to stay, let's try between all the hoteliers to be intelligent enough and not let somebody else from outside our business take part of our business away. No, that's my theory.
You've taken the boring elements of the hotel industry and applied it to apartments.
Excuse me?
You've taken the boring elements of the hotel industry and applied it to apartments, basically, which is the check-in, the cleaning, and the safety security around quality control.
You're saying it in a good way or bad way? I'm quite...
I'm tongue-in-cheek about you calling the industry boring. I mean,
Yes.
there are certain fundamentals that our customers are looking for, and part of the pitfall of Airbnb is the uncertainty around the quality, the uncertainty around the serviceability of the asset.
That's what I guarantee, because I don't let anybody come to Airbnb. You just have a hole and you put it up, and they don't control.
Oh, don't get me wrong. It's genius, but I'm taking a jab at you, calling the industry boring.
No, it's. I mean.
And what do you think? Like, are you seeing a different customer staying in the hotel versus staying in the apartment?
It's different moments of the same customer. And I do believe, as a hotelier, I'm in the same side, I do believe the apartment business should be regulated. I agree with that. They should be regulated, they should pay their taxes, and everything that is sensible enough. Let me give you an example. In Spain, for example, they came out with a law forbidding staying in the apartments. If it's short term, it has to be a minimum of 5 days. That's ridiculous. I mean, if I want to go to my family to Paris or to Madrid and I want to stay 3 nights, well, in my city, they prohibit it. Those are the kind of things that goes against nature. No? I do believe, as a hotelier, we have too many legal things to open a hotel. They should be half of them taken away because they're ridiculous. The sprinkler, a thousand things, and then the apartments have nothing. I think we should be taking things away, and the apartments should be put some regulations. No, that is something. But it's here to stay. I mean, it's the same thing as Napster. Remember Napster? Don't take down the music. You're going to go to jail, or don't take down the videos. What happens? Spotify, iTunes. This is going to be the same thing. I mean, we just have to open our eyes to it.
So, Anton, on behalf of the boring, so
Proud to be boring.
how does Viceroy differentiate itself? I mean, if I was, an owner wanting to choose a brand and you were pitching me, what's the DNA? What's the culture? What's the points of difference?
We had to train ourselves not to call ourselves boutique to start with. And we look at uncompromised luxury, no matter what the size is, whether it's 60 keys on the coast in Mexico or 500 keys in Abu Dhabi. The hallmarks of, and we use different names. You call them lifestyle, you call them boutique. I think what we're using this different words to describe the same thing, which is somewhat of a differentiated design. We like to think of our design as residential more so than hotels. So it looks like a living room. The room looks like your room. We're looking at now, if you walk into your bathroom at home, you don't have the same type of shampoo for your hair, for your body, and for your hand, your lotion. You use the best of all brands. So that's what we're going with our amenities kits. So we offer the luxury level, and we offer you an uncompromised level of service. We offer you design that is not monotonous, that is not like any other property of ours.
Your Abu Dhabi property is one of the most incredible properties I've stayed in my life.
Thank you so much.
Incredible.
Thank you so much. And once again, the Abu Dhabi property was not built for Viceroy. We came in a couple of years after it was built. but it's 80% of it is the software. It's not the hardware. It was a property that was built for Formula One, for an event. We took it over. The team has changed. The way we approach guests has changed. The language we use has changed. We didn't change much in the building other than the arrival experience and the lobby. But thank you. So we offer the uncompromising luxury, this high-end level of service. The fundamentals stay the same. So the back engine is similar. You get the distribution, you get the governance, you get the finance, you get the collection, you get the customer feedback, you get the employment and all that, while you as an owner get, and if this is a pitch to an owner, you get a property that has part of your individuality in it. You get a property that has part of the town in it, because we're not bound by a design manual that says carpet has to be a certain shade of X, of green, and the walls have to be a certain shade, or the room sizes cannot be smaller than that. If we're looking at a conversion of a building in the heart of a European capital, I know I'm going to have to live with the walls that exist. As long as, from the onset, we go in eyes wide open and we say, all right, does that position us? Do the walls that we're looking at allow us to compete with the best in town? And we'll go for it. So there's a high level of flexibility, and that individuality of the assets allows us to play in a lot of areas that more structured operators would shy away from.
Excellent. Anthony, it's interesting listening to IHG talk about Kimpton and how they're integrating it into the IHG family of brands, which seems to be directionally to keep it relatively separate and autonomous and to keep the head office in San Francisco and so on. Taking W as an example, are you able to ring-fence yourself in that? Because this distinct identity and distinct culture almost requires a separate or parallel organization structure.
It does, but the reason, I really believe the reason W has been so successful is not simply for providing the kind of local, energetic, design-led experience that you would expect of an independent boutique hotel. Its success lies on doing that as part of the system of SBG and a big brand. And it's the combination of those two things that make it so financially successful. So I'll give you an example. For about 70% of all rooms in W are SBG members. And if you think about the W business model, because of the relationship that Starwood has with Accenture, Deloitte, McKinsey, Citibank, Barclays, who are all those big companies who recruit hundreds and thousands of graduates at 24, 25 years old each year. And those graduates go into jobs with a high amount of travel quite quickly. So we have this huge tribe, hundreds of thousands of W loyalists who are essentially working for these big financial services firms. They get on the road between the ages of 25 and 35. And you look at the preferred hotel program and they can choose all these brands, and of course W is the one that they will migrate to. So you have this funnel that is pumping new consumers into W every day. And the age demographic, W's average age of consumer is younger than a Loft. So it's the youngest demographic of any Starwood brand, and it's because of this kind of system. So you can't underestimate the power of the corporation combined with creating the individual experience. And so I'm not in favor of W being a separate business within Starwood, completely isolated. There are functions that need to be separate, and there are functions that need to be aligned with
pulling off the platform. Yeah.
Right.
So just to be slightly controversial, if I was to compare and contrast W London with Firmdale's Ham Yard, for example, how were you positioning W differently? Because aren't you ultimately going after the same client? Or do you think there's a demographic difference or a pricing difference?
There's definitely a demographic difference. I would say Firmdale generally would be probably about $100 or so ahead of W in the big cities where we compete. So they're a notch higher from a price point of view. I would say it's a more sophisticated, subdued, individual, entrepreneur-driven experience. Firmdale, I think they do a fabulous job. W is energetic, exciting, global, fun-loving, work hard, play hard, and it really attracts our specific demographic of consumer. It's not for everybody. For some people, it's too loud, it can be too flashy. The design that we drive is very bold in the knowledge that some people love it, some people hate it. And that, I think, is a really important thing as we get bigger. Like, our goal is to polarize consumers. So if we're not polarizing, we're not doing a good job. We need people to think it's dreadful because it's just not for them, and we need people to absolutely love it. And that's what's happening. You see this kind of beyond rational tribe of people who will go out of their way to stay in every new W as it opens. So we get this wave of SBG consumers who book the first month of every opening, and you can see them coming in for each opening. And then you have consumers who will try W once because they're a Westin regular or they're a St. Regis regular, and they may just think, this is not for me. It's not right.
It's fascinating because I think the hotel industry generally, they've tried to be all things to all people, and that's often where they fall down. Whereas what you're saying is, we're absolutely happy to polarize people if they don't like it.
Because they have a large enough population to say, I'm happy to take the 25 to 35-year-old, and that will keep me busy.
Yeah.
And probably, not to put words in your mouth, but probably once they grow to the 35-year-old segment, their income is grown, they're probably more socially stable, they might have a young family, they graduate.
They're ready for Viceroy.
They're ready for Viceroy or Ferndale, potentially. No, seriously, and they can afford a higher average rate. They're looking after a different experience.
Absolutely.
They're looking more for a villa or more for a family oriented stay, yet not necessarily with a twist on design, not necessarily the expected design, but they welcome the unexpected.
So what's your demographic? I think Anthony's very clear. It's kind of like
W graduates
30
to start with.
Okay, yeah.
So we have the youngest. So the actual range is actually goes to about the bulk of the consumers are between about 25 and 50. Right. So what you see is a uniformly young perspective, even if the consumer is not young. And there is definitely this funnel of there's a funnel of millennials coming into W, which is what will fuel the future success of the brand, which is this younger group of professionals coming through the corporate programs. Yeah. The people who love it tend to stay for, I would say, to about mid-40s to late 40s. And so we have a really strange demographic thing going on right now, because we have a whole bunch of consumers who started having children, yet they still love W. And W is overtly not child-friendly. We don't want kids clubs. We really do not want to be a child-friendly brand. But we have increasingly consumers who are coming to W with their kids, and we've done a bit of research on it recently because we're thinking, do we need to come up with a kids club? And actually, what our consumers told us is they come to W because the idea of being in a family hotel with a kids club and other kids makes them shudder. But they want to be with their kids, so they come to W with their kids. So we're having to think about how do we create spaces in the hotels that are not overtly for children, but enable us to cope with the fact that we have all of these consumers that still want an adult experience, but they want their kids with them because they love them.
So that you don't mess it up for those who really don't want kids around.
Alex, the other big chunk of activity that lifestyle hotels generally differentiate themselves with is the food and beverage. And you've been doing some really interesting stuff with food and beverage partnerships. So could you just maybe walk us through what your thinking is about selecting the partner to do food and beverage with and how that's worked for you economically?
Yes, and just going back to the point before, I think it's what changes in the industry, what has changed so dramatically is that we have really a customer that every day starts more to understand what specifically they want. And I think what has happened in the hotel industry, what for many years hasn't happened, is what happened in other industry. You know exactly which kind of smartphone you want, and you're very intrigued about this is mine, what is yours, and how is this working. And I think in the hotel industry, it's the same thing now happening. People know exactly what they want, and you need brands that cater to their understanding. It's less about demographic, more about psychographic. It's about how people feel. And you might have the same customer traveling through some of our brands, and it's the same customer, but he has a different expectation for that specific trip. So I would agree with Anthony that there is a range of people. It's more about psychographic than about demographic. It's how they want to feel. We specifically think, and that's where it comes to partners, that people that stay with us want a more refined lifestyle experience, which for us, lifestyle just means the cultural experience, how attached we are with the city, what's going on with the hotels, where do we build hotels, and what would you expect to find around those hotels and in our hotels. And in order to do that, we pick and choose our partners tailor-made for a property. We don't have a partner or a couple of preferred partners that we go always. We have some that, when we go into city, we talk to them and say, would this make sense? In the room is Pete from Nikki, so we have great partnership with Nikki. That doesn't mean we always have a Nikki, but that means when you come to our beach properties, you would always find a happening beach club that is involved in the local neighborhood, and 95% of their customers actually are not hotel customers but outside customers.
Right.
the approach we take on everything is that we are really good at running rooms. You know, we could speak hours about our distribution channels and the way that we run the digitalization and how we beat some of our competitors on how much we are bringing to the room sale. This is great. When it comes to the experience, we love to talk to others which are really in the know of the local neighborhood. So when you design your spa experience, wellness experience, when you design your food and beverage, you got to understand we're still learning, but hoteliers, and there I agree with Kike, have been traditionally a little bit boring, you know. So I've heard some of them saying, I came back to certain places and 10 years after the bar is still the same, and not necessarily because it's the best bar in town. What we need to understand, you need an entrepreneurial approach towards these revenue-driving centers. It makes sense for the investor and it makes sense for the overall experience. And the way we do that is every time we look at a project, we first and foremost, in order to decide if it can be a me or not, we look at, does it make sense? Can we connect with the neighborhood? Can we bring in something local? Is there an international person that can bring something to the city? What makes Taylor make sense? And then we start actually thinking about, can it be a me or can it not be a me? If that doesn't work...
Is STK in London a lease or a management contract from them?
It's a JV, actually.
A JV?
They make money, we make money. We don't believe in pure lease. The pure lease for us is just a bulk figure to understand how much we should be making out of the space. If hoteliers understand that food and beverage is not about the sum of all the things coming together and making a little bit of profit, but looking at their individual outlets as point of sales and not point of costs, I think we all have changed that somehow, but you know, the industry is still ways from understanding that restaurants, bars need to have great concepts in order to be successful. And that's where great partnerships come in. Listen, we don't outsource everything, always. I think we look at every single property in order to understand what makes sense there. And that's why we don't want to grow as for example, you know, I still haven't found the formula to grow as large as W and stay as individual from a customer approach. Yeah. It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And you can only do so many projects at a time in order to be successful and really deliver on the expectation of local customers, which in the end are the ones that determine the successful of the investment.
So I think you just said you need a bigger team. Is that, Alejandro, what's the problem?
I've said that for a long time, but...
Could I throw the questions open to the audience? I'm sure you've got some questions you'd like to ask our panelists. And we have a microphone, I think. Do we, Gemma, or not? No, we could just shout out. Anybody? No. Okay. So, Kike, just going back to the B-Mate element of your product, which is already 4 times bigger than the hotel room element. How will you connect the guests with the hotels? How will they benefit from the sort of psychological security and the services of the hotel? How will that work in practice?
I think it's very easy. I think it's... At the end of the day, we put a butler service that receives you when you come to the door of your hotel. I mean, how many times have we heard things that when you arrive in Airbnb at 2 o'clock in the morning, the owner of the apartment is pissed off because you're late or your plane is late. So at this situation, they can leave the key at the reception of the hotel. Or what we do is we have a butler service that goes and waits for you at the door with the key, walks you up to your room, sees that everything is fine, and then is available 24 hours a day. No? And I did this with the butler service so I can expand with the same kind of service. What I'm talking right now is to independent hoteliers to see if they can become B-Mate ambassadors in the cities where I don't have roommate, so they can do that service providing. When you go to a city and you're in China, let's say, and you rent an apartment and they just give you the key, what happens if you need a doctor? What happens if you need somewhere to stay? Where do you call? Well, that's what we are. We want to be that safety net with the hotel, but with all the good things of being in an apartment. I mean, it's when you have children and you go to a hotel, everything is the same client at the end of the day. It is different situations. If I go to work, I want to stay in a hotel, come in, come out fast. If I go to Paris with my family, maybe I want to stay. It's raining. I've been to Paris 25 times. I just want to stay in the apartment with my family and enjoy. But I don't want to be cleaning. I don't want to be... At the end of the day, I think we have to really think that the client, as you guys said, has evolutionized. Now they know what they want. We cannot tell them a lie. And many times they know exactly what they're looking for. And I think many times the new way of traveling is apartments.
Thank you very much. I mean, from an owner's perspective, just moving on to the creation of the assets within which your brands live. Do you have experience, Anthony, of W being a conversion brand? Can you take existing hotel buildings and
So W
drop the gold dust?
W started as a conversion brand. So originally, W was really invented by Barry Sternlick as a way to kind of take assets that Starwood owned at the time that were had upside, should we say. And so all of the original 10 Ws or so in the US were conversions of pretty mainstream big box hotels. You know, paint them black, put in some cool design, put in a great bar, a DJ, some live programming, a great restaurateur, and there was no competition in the market at that time, so that formula worked a treat. But what happened unusually is that the consumer dragged W up market because the demand was so great that the pricing kept going up. As the pricing went up, consumers' expectations went up. So you can almost follow a trajectory of W construction, getting more and more luxury, not in terms of design, but in terms of cost per key from construction perspective, as the ADRs that W could command got higher.
But doesn't that happen to all our brands? I mean, if you look at the beginning, our first hotels were, mine as well, was if you look at it and you compare it to the last one I just opened in Milan yesterday, you say, my God, it's completely different almost thing. No, I think that's something we also have to look at, not to be back to basics.
To successful brands, right? So if your brand is really successful and you're providing something that consumers really want, and you're clever, you can charge more for it. That's what happens. But there's no specific time, but I would say after probably about 2008, 2009, it's pretty much a new build brand. So we now don't, it's very unusual to do a conversion, and a conversion would require such a take it back to the studs renovation that's often cheaper to build from scratch.
There's loads of Marriotts coming your way very shortly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think not many of them will become Ws.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question for Anthony about addition. What's going to happen once you're together? I mean, how do you think this addition really W?
Yeah, I think it's a very different proposition, actually. I think they're going to live very comfortably next to each other. And, you know, it's probably too early to talk about this too much, but in most cities, you could even put a W and Edition on two separate blocks near each other, and they are a different consumer. So I think they will complement each other really well.
So what's the difference?
I can't really talk for Edition, but my perspective from seeing Edition, as we've been looking at it from a competitor point of view, is that Edition is I would say, more sophisticated, more subdued, probably slightly more, slightly less risk-averse lifestyle hotel than W. W will be far more risk-taking in design decisions, in programming, and targeting a consumer. W is targeting a consumer that really wants to have fun and is light-hearted and a little bit cheeky, whereas Edition is targeting a consumer who is really sort of sees themselves as quite a cool kid. And I think there's a slight distinction there.
Just by working with Ian, and with the designers they have, the construction cost must be tremendous. So therefore, their sales cost is different. So products are different, I would guess.
So, Alex, on that point, I mean, how have you worked with architects and designers, and how is that influencing, you know, the consumer's experience of Me by Media?
Well, and going back to this point which Anthony just spoke about, I think we are still in the stage of converting a lot of properties because of what we are testing and piloting, and we've been highly successful with it. Ibiza has been a conversion of a property that was ours, had a 95 euro average daily rate, is now about 600 euros average daily rate by doing the conversion. So we are still think we are highly successful at it, and we also think that if the building is right, you can always do a conversion. It's about where the building is and how the building speaks to you, and therefore for us it's important that there is a story to tell. If the hotel, the building, the designer, the elements of the artwork, if there's no story to tell, if there is not a in-depth something that is holding up and could be in wallpaper as a well-respected design magazine, if it's something that is just let's use the word flashy. For us, this is not what our customer wants.
Right.
Sure, there are others out there that work very well with this. For us, it's very important to have substantial growth with great partnerships. And partners are as well the designers. That doesn't mean that you have to have a Norman Foster all the time like we did in London, because they can ruin you. But it is important to find the right architect and interior designer that has a storytelling with the city. So in Milan, we used a design company that before worked with Aldo Rossi, because the building is his, and that immediately had a tremendous link with the local community. And people just came in and said, wow. And then we chose Albert von Stockholm is a Spanish Palma-born photographer, who in our stand, you have a couple of his pictures. A lot of people came by and said, like, how can I purchase them? When you're done, just send them to us. This is kind of the thing we are trying to do with local people, creating something, and therefore design is important. It's not important how well-known the design is. It's not important how much money you want to spend on it. It can also be a 100-year-old building, reconverted with a great interior designer, but there's a storytelling that the customer understands why they would actually have an experience different from an XYZ hotel right next the corner.
How does the architecture of the building affect the experience of the guest?
Tremendous.
In a city, my perspective is it lasts all of 30 seconds.
Oh, I mean, think about
while
W
you
Barcelona.
arrive.
Like W Barcelona, the architecture is mind-blowing.
Stunning.
No,
It's
I
like an
appreciate that, and our property in Abu Dhabi is architecturally mind-boggling as well. And I cannot put a dollar amount or an effect on the experience of the guest, because if you give me a city hotel, not a resort, but a city hotel, I would much rather an efficiently designed cube or rectangle that has the money spent on the finishes and the interiors, because that's where the guests spend their time. They spend their time inside the hotel, interacting with the surfaces of the hotel, rather than the architecture of the building, which they see from the car as they drive up to the driveway.
I think when you go, look, this is Germany, so we can speak about this. If you sit in a German car,
you can't see
you are as much in love with the interior design as you are with the security, that it's not going to break down within the first 100 or 200 or 4,000 or 40,000 miles. I think the overall experience is we've learned from other industries that the overall experience is what makes it happen. If you go into an Apple store, they don't pick and choose just any venue. It has to have the right architecture and the right interior design. And I think the combination of both give us a story. Now, what that is, it could be a 100-year-old building. And when you arrive, you arrive to Plaza Santa Ana, and this is a beautiful, beautiful plaza, right, Kike, in the heart of Madrid. Beautiful. Now, you arrive there, and you have two amazing buildings. One is his, and the other one which stands out right in the middle, and you look and say, like, wow, I hope this is where we're going to stay. And when your car drives up and says, this is where you're going to stay, that's where it starts.
But that's the end of the interaction with the building.
Not really, because then you walk out in the afternoon, and you still look at it and say, like, wow, this is where I'm staying. So the architecture, and then no interior designer can do a good job if the architectural design is not right. So architecture of the exterior of the building, architecture of the flow within the building.
Oh, that's undisputed. I'm talking about the shape of the building, the physical.
I think everybody goes to the shot and says, wow, holy shit, I understand that I have to pay more to stay in this one because
it costs them more to build.
Because it costs a lot. But that's the psychograph of the customer. If I would like to have a customer that doesn't care about it, I'm in the wrong. My positioning statement of the brand is wrong, because if I have a customer who doesn't care about it, then for sure that customer has a point of entry for my room rate that isn't right for us, because we know our customer loves interior design. What they read, what they breathe, what they look at, what they encounter. They walk out from our hotel and go look at the landscaping of the city they stay in. They don't want to go back and say, like, oh my God, this is really terrible. I'm actually staying at the most ugliest building of the whole city.
I'm not saying put them up. Hold on, I'm not saying put them up in a dump.
They wouldn't be paying. They wouldn't be paying
put them up in a
what
dump.
we asked them to pay for. For them, this is in a complex experience. Now, that doesn't have to be, again, that doesn't have to be the most expensive experience. We're not looking to say, we want to ruin an investor when they come to talk to us. Who do you want to talk, who do you want to work with? Norman Foster, and this is who we work with, nobody else. No, it can be a design company, but it has to have a story other than it's just an office building reconverted. Very difficult to see that.
So
the investors like the black carpet and the black paint. Can we just go back to the original W? That really worked for the investor. Sadly, we've come to the end of our allotted time. And I think the thing that stands out to me is not the differences between the panelists, but the passion they all share for what they're doing, and the excitement and the enthusiasm is really palpable, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, and could you please thank the panelists?